Hello, welcome to San Francisco Independent Film Festival. Today we are talking to Talia Legacy, director of This Is Not a War Story, Everett Cox, who is a Vietnam veteran and a poet, and Sam Adegoke, who is one of the stars of This Is Not a War Story. Hello everyone, nice to see you all. So I would like to start with Talia. What was the story or the inspiration behind This Is Not a War Story?
Well, it goes back a ways. I started writing a script in 2016 or so that was explicitly about suicide and trauma, and I kind of followed the threads of that, and it led me to reading about veterans' narratives and experiences in war. And then I found this community of veterans and kind of um, loved their work and their art and everything, and the kind of the script kind of came organically through meeting them and getting to know their work and their stories.
Is that how you met Everett?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And there's quite a few poets
Oh yeah.
to the film. How many are there? About 4 or 5?
No, there's Eli, Nate, Kevin, Jan, Walt.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah, there's a whole there's almost the
Everybody's a
entire
poet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, Sam's a poet for sure. But no, we definitely had almost the entire supporting cast are veterans and poets and artists.
Oh wow, was that quite challenging for you, Everett, to discuss something that was very that could potentially be quite traumatizing, or did you feel that it was important for Talia to cast veterans?
I thought it was a great opportunity to let go of bad experiences.
Yeah, excellent. And Talia, was it very important for you to cast veterans, or was it something?
No, I couldn't foresee doing the film without that, frankly. And I was every step along the way, I was very encouraged by them because I was told that, I mean, they were, that as a civilian, it is actually important to have an opinion on this and have a sincere feeling about it and share, one's voice and I think that if I hadn't been able to assemble the cast and crew that I had, I don't know that I could have made this film, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sam, I wanted to ask an acting question. You embody this role that's kind of tight ropes between control and pain. How did you get into character for Will, and what were the biggest challenges connected to that?
The get into character question. um it's interesting that there was a lot of, I think, just listening and being present. I think this was an act for me and an exercise for me in being present. Obviously you do your character work. I don't know anyone who's ever served. I've never served. No one in my family served. None of my friends had served. So stepping into that life, what had largely shaped it was a lot of the movies that you see in Hollywood. But I think what really attracted me to this project was just kind of the backstory, but just being kind of how beautifully, Talia writes character. And those characters, you hear actors say this a lot, but when the writing is there, it makes your work easier. When it's authentic writing and you can see the dynamics between the people and the characters. So that certainly made the job much easier. Yes, I did my backstory and my homework on veterans and the specific MO of Will and what that could look like. And I spoke to people who were former service men and women prior to kind of stepping into New York and meeting the real life individuals. And it was certainly I'm a Nigerian guy. We don't get intimidated easily. But it was certainly intimidating. It's one thing when you're doing a biographical piece and the people whose lives you're taking on are no longer with us. It's another thing entirely when they're right next to you. You know what I mean? And that brings a whole different level um, of just you want to make sure that what you are portraying is in honor of their story and their experience, and that's really what it became about for me. It's interesting, Everett, your statement about just shedding back bad experiences. I was talking to Talia the first day we started shooting. I'd done all my back work in character and I was prepped and I was eager and excited to go. And before I shot a single scene, Everett was in this back room in the VA office in Jersey, and just kind of, I didn't know him, had met him, just shook hands. What's up? Hey, I'm Sam. Hey, I'm Everett. And he shared this story, an experience of his of he had the sign and talking about how the sign said, "I'm crazy, that please talk to me." I'll never forget this. And he just boldly, kind of courageously shared his story. And I literally left. I walked outside and I just lost it. I was like, wow, this is what we're doing. Like, this is real people. This is real experiences. And it elevated everything for me after that. And I literally kind of just threw away all the prep and just was like, okay, I'm just going to watch, listen, and just try and find the truth. For me, it became about Everett and the fellas, and just trying to do right by their story. And this is a very long-winded answer to how do you get the character. You can do all the prep work, but sometimes you just gotta look up and see what's going around, and just observe and listen, and it just that I felt made it much easier for me. And hopefully the fellas feel like I did some level of justice to their story. So
Did he, Everett?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, tell me anything, right?
The man himself. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Sam. That was a wonderful answer. Some of my personal favorites from the film is the beautiful and powerful poetry. It was all wonderful, but some of my favorite moments were actually from the poems. A particular extract being Talia's character, Isabel, was reading a poem out. I think it's about half an hour into the film, and it goes like this: "Listen, what haunts me are not their curses, but this, the man who speaks perfect English, whose name is not ISN 154234, but Ahmed. He is a fruit seller, a father of three. He passes me a paper flower, says he forgives me, for I know not what I do." Yes, that was my favorite line from the film. I wondered if anybody else had any particular favorite moments from the film.
Oh, I've seen it so many times at this point, I can't say. No, that poem was written for the film by Kevin Basil, who appears in the film. He's an Iraq veteran, and I just wanted to bring in all of their work as much as I could. Poems. Kevin also has a song that appears in the film. Yeah, it just to echo what Sam was talking about, it just sort of came together quite organically in this way. Just everything sort of, when a poem felt right, or a phrase. A lot of it was scripted, but there was also a lot of improvisation. So all of these things, sort of came together in a way that we just kind of kept the crew very small, and we kept it sort of family-sized film, and we're able to pull it off. But it was it's by no means easy or a walk in the park.
Okay. What about you, Sam? Do you have a particular moment from the film that's your favorite?
I mean, how long do you have? There was a lot of it was just to me, the beauty of just being this fly on the wall and just seeing how the fellas interacted, and seeing their dynamic, and just kind of knowing their stories, and this just kind of beautiful, amazing kind of jarring art that they create, especially when you learn the stories behind the individual pieces. But as heavy as the material was, and as authentic as we wanted to make it, to tell their stories, we found so many, I felt like, just crazy sporadic moments of insane joy. And just working with Talia, we would just be laughing our asses off, and it was about really crazy and insane shit that I can't even repeat here, but it just it brought like I mean, as much joy as you could have, you know, given the subject matter, because I think we both kind of reside in generally, you know, dark places, and so adding that levity, I felt just brought something to it. So I wouldn't say there's a specific moment for me, but the process was certainly one that, you know, I'll you know, kind of never forget. And I feel privileged, and I know people say this, but I really feel privileged to have been a part of it, especially, you know, just the dynamic of, you know, seeing that lens is told through a Black man, you know, and kind of uh, the unspoken but very vocal imagery that evokes, you know, because I feel like, you know, um, the traumas in our communities and the coping mechanisms for those still aren't really, you know, it's taboo to seek therapy, it's taboo to seek a community, you know, it's like go to church and talk to your mom, and those are very limited, you know what I mean? So though that wasn't explicit, that was definitely something I carried with me, you know, throughout. So it was just, yeah, it was seeing the fellas and just listening to their stories and riff, you know, Nate's crazy ass, and just it was just funny. It was fun to be there and just observe this group, you know, and how they show up, you know, every day in their work and their lives and their experience. So.
Um, what came first for you, Talia? Was it easier to work around the poems, or did the story come first and then you tried to wedge? Sorry, I didn't mean wedge.
Yeah.
Put the poems in.
No, I hear you. No, the story for sure came first. I actually had an entire draft of a script before I had encountered their whole world of work, but then I had built these scenes with the intention that, like, there would be there'd be a poem in one, there would be improvisation in another, there would be artwork in another, and we basically just kind of used the structure of the story and found all these places, you know, having gotten to know their work very well. I sort of figured out which ones would go well in certain places throughout and tried very hard to include. There's so much that we shot that couldn't be included. I think my first cut of the movie was like 3 hours and something minutes long, which is, you know,
That's
crazy.
the difficult part of being the editor of your own film.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, no, it was
everything.
no, but it's that part of the process is also fun because I try to kind of divorce myself from having had other experiences with the material. So I sit down and pretend that I have no idea what I'm about to see, and I'm just watching the footage that somebody else made, you know. And you know, it doesn't always work, but it allows me to try in some way to just look at the footage with some sort of you know,
fresh set of eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See it as an audience. I don't think that really answered your question.
No, don't worry. It was very interesting. Sam, I wanted to ask you, Talia, if I'm correct, this was filmed 2019, or was it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yes. Okay. Because you said it was pre-pandemic and you were editing. Okay. So I was just wondering, Sam, with the very politically heavy year that we had in 2020 and the Black Lives Matter movement, I wanted to ask you specifically, how do you think seeing a war film with a Black lead in it, how do you think that would reflect on the Black Lives Matter community? Sorry, that's not the best worded question on the planet. I just wanted to hear your opinion of it, because it's I don't know that many war films that have Black leads in it.
Sure.
And I just wondered how you felt about the portrayal.
Yeah, you know, I think I think it's just what you said, that visual isn't often there, and that wasn't, you know, explicitly, you know, through the dialogue, but again, it was something that, you know, you know, even as I've been dealing with my own need for therapy, you know, and having discovered that kind of very remarkably right around the time this film began, I just know what that's done for me in my life, and I know that that's tremendously needed in our communities, and I feel like this, hopefully, this portrayal can, just show that there's in addition to the amazing stories of the men and women of frontline paper,
Mm.
um, that there are Black servicemen and women who have contributed a lot to this country in various conflicts, from World War II to Vietnam to war in Iraq, and we hear stories of the Tuskegee Airmen and the infantries and who led charges, and but they are seen in, I think, kind of like a singular lens as Black stories and Black experiences versus American experience, and
Yeah.
kind of co-opting them into that world, so that we just realize that this isn't singular or one-off. This is as American as anyone else's story, and I don't know, if visual can do all that, but for me, if it's just if we sprinkled a bit of some sort of kind of light on that in this film, and something that was unexpected that makes people just think twice, then you know hopefully there's some success in that. I don't know if it answers your question. I don't think with
No, I
the
just like it.
juggernaut of kind of yeah, I just with the juggernaut of racial politics in America and kind of the current climate, we got a lot to do. But it's kind of like Mom always says, you can't change the world, but you can make one corner better. So if
Yeah.
collective stories like these are sprinkling in kind of that nuance, then hopefully it can.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Sam. Sorry to unload. That wasn't
No, it's
planned.
all right.
I just
Sorry.
thought
We unload is what we do. So yeah, it's all good.
Everett, I didn't ask you, do you have a particular moment in the film that you treasure or like the memory of?
When Eli cut the uniform off me,
Mm.
he said something like, when he was trained to be a medic,
Yes.
he learned that you first uncover the wound to see the wound. And he was doing that as he cut the uniform off me, and it made me tremble. It really hit me hard because I had tried most of my life to hide that wound. And it was shocking to hear those words and to have that uniform cut off me at the same time.
Wow. Yeah, it was a very powerful visual. So do you feel that you have healed a lot of those wounds by this film being made?
Yes, yes. It not only the filming, but working with the other veterans, working with Sam, understanding the story. I think these things are necessary for almost all veterans who have been to war. And there's a number of ways to approach it, but I think maybe it starts with words, if you can speak them, if you can write them, but then many arts, theater arts, dance arts, all kinds of other ways of expressing the experience. But I think there's very few veterans who couldn't use some means of transformation, changing that war experience into something more living.
Thank you, Everett. So that was all very powerful and emotional. I'm going to move on to a film production question just to lighten the mood. Talia, you encompass so many roles in this production. You're acting in it, directing it, written in it, produced in it, edited in it. What were the biggest challenges making that commitment, and what did you learn from that experience?
It's a very big question. I mean, all of that was all of it was challenging. There wasn't a single part of it that was easy. But
Listen, can I just say Talia is a beast, and that I'm in awe of that woman.
Yeah.
on such an astronomical level. And I don't mean to steal the mic from you, but I just gotta say this. It's like, talk about, listen, no one has any excuse to not make a fucking movie. Forgive me, I get passionate and I start cussing.
That's
The
okay.
fact that she wrote this script, directed it, produced it, served as like continuity for makeup, like, oh yeah, that wasn't the shirt from the other day, was like ordering crafty and food to make sure we're all fed, making sure I was getting bussed back and forth on my flights, all of that, and then like casually delivering like acting magic in between is anyways, carry on, Talia. I just had to say that. Because I know you won't brag about you, so I will. But,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sam. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what Sam described. Was I was just around like a loon for 25 hours a day, 8 days a week for a couple of years. But I will say that all of these roles, like there's a tendency, I think, to separate what these roles are, like directing and writing and producing, acting and all the, like editing. These are not separate art forms, and these are not separate crafts. They're intensely connected. And one of the things that I was trying to challenge myself with by doing it this way was the fact of experiencing the integration of all of those crafts, because I know that I'm writing my best when I'm writing something that I know as an actor would be fucking fun to say, you know, or, you know, or would resonate with me emotionally. Like I know, you know, when I'm, you know, directing is you're at your finest when you're in tune with what the actor has to do, when you understand exactly what they're up against. And so all of these things are they're all part of the same craft, and certainly the same impulse. So yeah, it was intensely difficult and challenging to take all that on, but it also just seems entirely natural to me.
Okay. And
Yeah.
is there anything that you would
for the rest of us plebeians, it's unnatural, but yeah, cool. For the mortals on the call.
I was gonna say, like, because you to get yourself into a character, and for a character that's so emotional as well, and then to have the assistant come up to you and be like, could you sign this check please so we can do this, this and this, that must have been really jarring. I mean, Sam
Yeah.
can probably vouch, like, no, I need to be alone so I can get into character. So for you to sort of be like, yeah, it's all the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, you have different internal modes you have to switch in between, right? But then, you know, as a director, you do that anyway, because you have one dialogue with the DP and one dialogue with the designer and one dialogue with the actors, and they're all different relationships, right? They're all a different, honest side of who you are. And so if it's just a matter, I guess it's like shifting gears in a car, but just many different gears and constantly moving them. But yeah, I think I don't know if it's just a mix of adrenaline and just sheer insanity, and you know, but it was definitely a drive that I had to find a way to make all of those impulses and crafts balance out. You know, wish I had a better way of explaining it, but
No, that's wonderful. So Sam, do you think you would ever put the director's hat on at any
hell
point?
Oh,
yes.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's something I'm actively working towards, and I learned a lot from that experience in terms of doing that on the indie scale. And I've just been trying to shadow, you know, directors on the current show that I'm working on, and just talk with folks. So, but there's a lot of stories out of you know, Africa, Nigeria, as the world becomes more global, that I just think are really important to tell, and actively working towards telling those stories, and want to touch every aspect of it, you know, the same way that, you know, Talia kind of shepherded this, and just you know, ensure that the story stays kind of, you know, true to the individuals who are experiencing it, and you know, to what you're trying to say about their experience, and you know, the world, and what we can all be aware of. So yes, I absolutely want to, and will be directing soon.
Would you ever do directing, producing, writing, editor?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I like
you
to get my
would.
hands in everything. I think that was what was so inspiring, that now I know it's possible
Yeah.
with very little resources, and I literally have no excuse, and I really mean that. So yes, I think that's, you know, as a creative, that's the sweet spot, the beauty of, you can touch every aspect of, you know, I'll run around with a, you know, steady cam, whatever it requires, That would be really amazing. You know, just to touch every aspect of the story, you know, in the process, and then challenge yourself to do good work as an actor as well.
Yeah.
Why not? I feel like that's indie filmmaking, and that's an art form that needs to preserved as everything is getting bigger and deals and all these different things. So if I can add to that, that'd be pretty cool.
Awesome. Very
And you've
awesome.
got me here constantly encouraging you in that direction, not shutting up about
Yes,
it. There's that.
yes, not at all, not at all.
Keep encouraging him.
Yeah.
So what are you hoping for This Is Not a War film? Do you have any other film festival screenings or any previous ones that you want to mention?
No, this is our first one. I mean, at this point I mean, it's so, the pandemic has made everything so sort of unpredictable, so I don't really know what is going to happen after this. We're on the short list for the Directors Fortnight section of Cannes, but I don't know what that's going to amount to yet. But we don't really have a, you know, at this point, I just want people to be able to see the film and you know, make their own minds about it and experience it, get out there into the world. I mean, it's ready for that phase of its life, so off
Yes,
it goes. You know?
Definitely. Well, do keep submitting to film festivals. As someone who works for film festivals, I can safely say they're still happening. It may not be the same, but they are still happening. So definitely keep submitting and getting them out there, because in a funny way, this whole pandemic thing has kind of made it more global and the audience is bigger. So even though we're not all together having a drink, there's still an audience out there that they'll definitely want to see this film. And just where can people learn more about this film? Do you have any social media tags that you'd like to mention? Or
the best place to go is the website, acousticpictures.org. It's got everything about the film on it and the trailer and bios and cool links to music and poems and stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And what's next for all of you? What are you all going to be doing next?
Well, Sam and I have a top secret project.
Oh yeah.
You're not going to say.
The re-collab. Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens, but we're working towards it.
Yep.
Awesome.
Development stages right now. Yeah.
Yes, that's brilliant. Everett, would you like to add anything to finish off our lovely discussion?
I think the film, I hope many civilians, many people who have no experience with veterans or military, I hope they will come to see it and get a sense of the repercussions of war. I think that you don't really come home from war until civilians welcome you back into the community. And it takes a lot more than saying thank you for your service or welcome home or something like that, to really know that the transition can be very difficult and that you can reach out and make it less difficult.
That's lovely. Thank you, Everett. Well, that's everything. I wish we could talk for hours about this film. Fortunately, time's not on our side, but it was really lovely to speak to you all and learn more about you all. I've never watched a war film like this. I know it's called This Is Not a War Film, but I have to say, like, I've watched quite a few war films, and it's a very different experience, and it really captures something that's very emotive. And I was very moved watching this film. So thank you, Talia and Sam and Everett, for creating something so moving.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, please everyone come and watch San Francisco Independent Film Festival. This is not the war. Hope you enjoyed This Is Not a War Film. And
it's not a war story, I should say.
This is not a war. Sorry, this is not a war story. And I hope you all have a lovely day and take care.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.